Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called Always Get It in Writing. When I was a teenager, like many of my peers, I worked in a restaurant. I worked hard, and within a few months I was a shift supervisor. I always worked closing, obviously, because I was still in school. One day, in class, my phone starts blowing up, call after call after call. It was my manager. I called back in the brief period between classes. He needed a supervisor to cover the midday, and I had to quickly tell him I was in school and couldn't be there. I went in for my normal shift that evening and was immediately pulled into the manager's office. I was told that I had been unprofessional and that I would occasionally be expected to cover other shifts. Then I was told I would get a week's suspension with no pay. I pointed out that I was in school, high school, but that didn't matter. Cue the malicious compliance. Our company has a policy that certain punishments would be put on a written record, and the employee got a copy. I brought this up, and the manager was only too happy to oblige. On the form, I would get to explain my side, and we both would sign it. I wrote that I was still in high school, and that's where I was when I refused to cover the shift. As soon as I left, I called the regional manager and explained what happened. I basically said that if I didn't get to work the next day, I'd be showing that paper to the Department of Labor. When I came in the next night, the store manager had been moved to another store and we had a new one who was pretty cool. The next story is called Fire Alarm Tests. Going back about 16 years, I worked in an entry-level admin job, which included taking phone calls from people wanting repairs to their social housing. We had lots of angry people calling. Being the helpful young chap I was, I also volunteered to test the fire alarm in the building with a couple of other colleagues. This was done at 9 AM every Monday morning. One morning, I had a particularly obnoxious caller and didn't get off the phone until about 9:15 AM. Straight after, I made my way to the alarm panel at the other end of the building and we did the test, no issues, or so I thought. A few hours later, my manager calls me to go see her. She is fairly new. Turns out she wants to point out the importance of doing the alarm on time. I shouldn't be late doing it and that I should organize my time better. I tell her the best option is if I stop doing the test since I can't guarantee I'm always free at 9 AM. For example, if someone calls at 8:40 AM and chews my ear off for 30 minutes, I am definitely not gonna put them on hold and get them another reason to go off at me. My manager says I should stop spitting my dummy out and being sulky and petulant. I agreed that I would carry out the test at 9 AM sharp in the future. The next few weeks pass and the manager is getting complaints from callers that either they get cut off or inexplicably put on hold. She notices this happens around 9 AM Mondays and the complaints are related to calls involving me. Yep, I was either just cutting callers off completely or putting them on hold for however long it took to make sure that alarm was done at 9 AM. Any callers wanting to speak to my manager? But of course, here are her contact details. Needless to say, I stopped having to do the alarm and my manager had to do it instead as nobody else was able to. The manager and I continued to work for the same employer, although I went off to a different team. We bumped into one another on training courses for some time and she was always frosty, until recently when she was laid off and I did not find it hilarious at all. The third story is called She Wanted a Fence. I worked at and volunteered for PTA in my daughter's elementary school for 7 years. During that time we got a new principal, let's call her Umbridge. She was a master of hiding evil beneath a sugary sweet facade. Umbridge came in guns blazing as it was her first principal assignment. I don't take crap from anyone, which I rated Umbridge to no end. Anyway, she got it into her head that our school needed a safety fence around it. It was going to cost loads of money the district didn't have or wouldn't allocate. So Umbridge tasked me and our PTA with finding a way to fundraise and pay for her fence. She says she will find funds for the labor costs. Nobody wanted it, it wasn't needed, but okay. After nearly a year of researching viable alternatives, she vetoed everyone. One day, miraculously, I find that one of our students' parents owns a fencing company. I call and fairly beg for any help or donations they can give. They say they'll donate the entire fence, only charge nominally for the labor. Umbridge is elated, but now that the fence is free, she wants the PTA to pay for the labor. I remind her about the emails and speeches we got over the last year. She had demanded that the PTA must find a way to pay for the fence, not the labor. And that she demanded that this should be written in our meeting minutes. She is livid. Her fence was then installed. My favorite part isn't even the funding. She insists that the multiple gates, which the fence company actually would like to be paid for, aren't necessary. She installs one at the very entrance to the giant playground and grounds surrounded by this fence. And she has super crazy strict not to be broken rules that nobody will climb on or over this fence. I often worked on playground duty, so I found immense pleasure in reporting to the principal every day that all the school's basketballs, foursquare balls, volleyball or whatever have bounced over the fence. And as neither staff nor children are allowed outside the fence, on the fence or over the fence, we would just be leaving them for her to deal with. I mean, she always made our very sweet custodian pick them up at the end of the day. But I made it my special job to report to her every incident of anything going over the fence, since she is so very concerned about the fence situation. Like 5 to 6 times a day, via walkie-talkie and email for documentation purposes. For those of you concerned about my lack of sense of security, we had plenty of other barriers. And we had many other options available that the district would have paid for. And she even left the back of the fence next to the creek wide open and said the fence is just meant to be a visual barrier. The next story is called "Dock Half of My Pay?" This happened about a decade ago in my first job. I was at an analytics service firm in India. I am from India. While work was interesting, the work hours were insane, and folks used to work 12 hours a day usually. Since we always had conference calls with our counterparts sitting in the USA, we ended our workday pretty late. 10 PM was my usual time. Due to this, folks used to come into the office late in the morning as well. Usually the entire team would only be in by noon. Management was not happy about this, so they went ahead and decided that everybody had to be in by 10 AM. And if you are not, then they will dock half a day's pay. Usually, managers were supposed to enforce this, but they didn't care, since they were in the office with the teams themselves. But occasionally, HR would stand at the entrance to the office to implement the policy. On one such day, I was 15 minutes late and HR stopped me at the gate and informed me that I will be docked half-day pay. I stopped for a second, thought about it and turned back. HR stopped me with a shocked expression and asked, "Where are you going?" I replied, "Back home, see you at lunch," and went back home, ignoring his feeble protest. I actually ended up calling my manager and just took a day off. After this incident, I heard similar stories from many people and HR stopped enforcing this policy. The last story is called "Don't Need That Anymore?" 20 odd years ago, I was an administrative assistant to the training director in my company. For unknown reasons, the CFO had it out for her and our department as a whole because he did not see any value in what we did. The company got in some kind of pinch financially and laid a large number of staff off, including my director. From that point on, I knew my days were numbered since I could not be an assistant to nobody. I am still good friends with my old director, who was hired at a prestigious company where she makes more and her work is appreciated. When my turn came, the VP who let me go was not unkind. But he was ignorantly dismissive of my concerns regarding reports and other tasks I alone completed for the company. This included an extremely complex and time-consuming report that had taken me a month to master after my director created it. These days, that kind of report could be handled easily with the right software, but not back then. Some of the other details of my job included vendor contacts and contracts, as well as employee travel for various conferences. "Don't worry about that," she airily assured me. "We don't need any of that anymore. You can use your 2 weeks notice to get rid of it for me." Surprised but annoyed, I took her at her word. I deleted all of the files, shredding a good deal of now unnecessary paperwork, clearing out all of my contact information, and so forth. Amazingly, in a layoff situation, I ended up getting a new job in the same company, and I am still there in that position, which I love. This is pertinent to my story. If I had not remained at the same company, I would not have then received dozens of phone calls and emails from the vice president and those she had retained in the department. They asked me how to do this or that for booking travel, hotels, conferences, what vendor to contact for various things, instructions on the difficult report, and more. Fortunately, my new position in a separate division is extremely busy with constant customer contact. So we really are not supposed to be on the phone. This gave me leeway to answer in gentle and innocent puzzlement each time. Oh, the vice president told me that none of that information was needed anymore. I don't have any of that because she told me to get rid of it. If they asked me about the report, I would reply briefly. That one was so tough, it takes a lot of practice, so I have already forgotten. Oops, a customer's waiting. Gotta go. Rest assured that this was not a scenario in which I destroyed company info or did anything illegal or even unethical. My friends back in my old department would chortle over how the vice president and her underlings had to recreate the wheel, but I was never in any trouble in the least. After all, I had only done exactly what the vice president told me to. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.